Welcome to third grade parent orientation. Just out of curiosity, how many of you have had children already come through the elementary school? As I mentioned, Lauren Guarilia, affectionately known as Miss G, here in the school for one more year until she gets married next summer, and then her name will change. Lauren does a wonderful job here creating a comfortable and exciting and safe environment for children, and they will get to know her very well. She's very visible throughout the school, and the students certainly get lots of exposure to her through her school-wide meetings that she hosts and different types of things that we'll talk about more as we get going. All right, so our building consists of 3 wings. Our third graders have their own wing. It's the closest wing to the primary school. If they actually look out the windows, they can see the primary school. So I don't know if that was done by design when they added that on or not, but I think there's a level of comfort for the children as they can look out and see their building that they have spent, in most cases, several years in already. So that closest wing there to the primary school is the newest wing. It's also our wing for our third grade students. There are 6 classes down in that section. We have 6 homerooms in third grade, which means 6 different homeroom teachers. Our students enter at different locations. I noted the third grade wing. Then in the middle of the building is our 4th grade wing. That's a loop. The third grade wing is just a single wing, one entrance, one method of getting there. The 4th grade wing is a loop, so you can go down 2 different hallways to enter the 4th grade wing. And then as you head down on this side of the building, the original part of the building is our 5th grade wing down in the section over here. So our 3rd graders, our 4th graders, and our 5th graders are separated throughout most of the day. The students enter through different locations because of their different locations in the building. Our 3rd graders, when they come off of the buses, they enter right into the 3rd grade wing through the back entrance. They come off the buses and teachers are out directing them right into the 3rd grade wing. 4th graders walk with the 3rd graders and then split off and continue down the blacktop around the back of the building and head right directly into the 4th grade wing. And our 5th graders actually go in a completely different direction when they get off the buses. They walk out to the front of the building. They come in the doors that some of you came in over here by the gymnasium, and they walk through and they walk the front of the building straight down to their wing. So even entering the building, the students are directed in different directions. There is one entrance for visitors. I know during the summer, because we have the camp going on, they use this entrance over here. The main entrance to the building is right by the main office and the nurse's office. During the school day, that is the only way that you can access the building. There is a buzzer system, an intercom at the front door. When you arrive at the school, you'll press the button, you'll be greeted, hello, how can I help you? You'll be asked to state your name and your intentions in the building. So, if you're here to pick up your child, you'll say, I'm here to pick up so-and-so, my name is so-and-so, I'm here to pick up so-and-so. Or if you're here to volunteer or something, you'll just explain them, we'll buzz you in, you're directed directly into the main office where you take a badge like you have today, you sign in so that we have record of who's in the building. Again, noting everyone who enters the building must sign in the main office and must wear their badge. Our staff is under very, very strict instructions. If they see someone in the building without their badge, the person is questioned and directed back to the main office or escorted back to the main office to get a badge so that we know exactly who's in our building and it's clear that they belong inside the building. The nurse's office is, again, as you walk in the main entrance, the main office is right here on the right, the nurse's office is right here on the left. My guess is at some point over the next 3 years you will have some interaction with the nurse in terms of your child falling ill or falling on the playground and getting a bruise or a bump, more likely than not over the next 3 years. Mrs. Jennings is our nurse. She is dynamic. The children love her. She's great in terms of communication. There's not going to be an experience where something is happening in school and it comes by surprise to you. She's great with communication. She lets you know what's happening. My expectations of her is that she's communicating with parents and she already has a past practice of doing that as well in terms of communicating with families in terms of what's happening. And if there's a little scratch on little Sally, then we're going to make sure that you know about it before you're surprised by it. Student drop-off and pickup procedures. These are still under review. We're still tightening them up under our security review that we did last year. There were specific practices in terms of our student drop-off and student pickup procedures that have been under review. We're still finishing those up specifically, but I can tell you it will be something along the lines of, and I can't speak exactly how things were at the primary school, but here in the elementary school, towards the end of the day, parents would come, they would buzz in at whatever time they arrived, and they would head into the cafeteria and wait for children to be dismissed from their classroom, where they would pick up their children in the cafeteria and then leave the building. We're going to be restricting access to a certain time. It is most likely going to be 3:10. Students in our school have related arts up until, third graders have related arts up until 3:15. They then go back to their classroom where their things have already been packed up, and then at about 3:18 they'll be released to the cafeteria. So if we have parents who are showing up at 2:45, 2:50, it doesn't make good sense for us to just have the parents in the building sitting waiting in the cafeteria. We'd prefer if you try and arrive closer to dismissal time, and we're not going to permit access to the building until 3:10 when we can have a staff member present to allow parents into the building and guide them directly into the cafeteria. In terms of drop-off in the morning, we have a pretty, what I think is a well-structured routine in which cars come through. They're guided through the parking lot. We are able to, by calling cars all the way to the front of the drop-off line, we can get about 6 or 7 cars to dismiss their child at the same time. So, and we have 2 or 3 staff members out there greeting the children as they're coming in. And then those cars pull out, next cars pull up, and depending upon the day, if in rainy days we certainly get more drop-offs than other days because of the bus stop, and it's understandable being a parent myself. But we try to have as structured of a process and as timely of a process as possible. We start allowing children into the building at 8:50, and the school day starts at 9 o'clock. So the first folks on the drop-off line, their children will be allowed into the building at 8:50. Those folks will pull out, the next cars will come through. So the line won't really start moving until 8:50. So that's pretty much an overview of the building and the structure. By all means, I get chatty. If you have a question, you want to throw it out there, just jump right in. I'm not offended.
If you have a kid in the primary school and a kid in the elementary school and you're picking them both up, are you supposed to come here first, or?
Yeah, this very similar question came up at the prior session, and I actually deferred to some folks who had past experience with that, and they said that the best way to go about it is to pick up your children from the elementary school, then head over to the primary school, because they're always a few minutes behind at the primary school, and it takes a little longer to pick up at the primary school and get the younger children to move along with you to come over to the elementary school. So yes, pick up at the elementary school first, then the primary school.
Is it the same for drop-off then? If you have to drop 2 kids off in the morning?
Now that is a good question.
It's tight. That time is tight.
It is really
10 to,
tight.
it's backed up sometimes, especially when it's raining or something. It's like crazy.
Well, an alternative that I could suggest would be you could, rather than going through the drop-off procession, you could park your vehicle and walk the primary school child over to the primary school and walk both children across the walkway. Because there are teachers out there, we have a crossing pattern there. Folks can walk directly across. The child going to the elementary school can enter the elementary school, and the parent could then escort the child over to the primary school. That would be a timely way, rather than dropping off and then going to the back of the other line and waiting through the back of the other line. That's a way that you could go about that. In terms of which way is faster on drop-offs in the morning, I don't think there's a good answer, because children are expected in school at the same time. So
You have to be
that's a
in
good
the
question.
drop-off line when they first come out. That's the trick. You have to be at the primary school, be one of the first 6 cars to be able to get your kid here on time. That's my experience. It's fast.
And
But
does
you're gonna-
primary start unloading the cars before
8:50.
8:50?
So both schools are
sometimes they
8:50.
don't come out when they're supposed to, exactly when, and then you're barely catching the door open here, which is
The
So here would be my advice, is I'm thinking this through in my mind.
Primary school.
8:45, be in one of the lines at 8:45.
Right.
And that way you can be in the front of the line, so as soon as you're able to drop off one of the children, you could then follow in the car around and get onto the back of the other lines and drop both children off.
Are they marked, like, if the line is still moving and it's 9 o'clock, are they marked late?
Yes.
They are, great.
This year they were tough over there, and I heard they're tough over here.
In terms of drop-off, what we do, our teachers, as per their duty schedule, they're supposed to be coming in at 9 o'clock. I can count on one hand the number of times where the cars were still online. There are cars that pull around after the line is done, and in those cases, those children are late. But if you are on the line, and the cars are coming through and the line was just extremely long and it took more than 10 minutes to get through the entire line, then we would not mark those children late. But if the line is clear and then a car pulls up, that's different. The car pulled up late.
How would the homeroom teacher know where they were coming from?
The students come in to the building. If we have whatever procedure, if there's a reason why children are late, same thing as like when a bus is late, we would just make an announcement saying, please accept children and don't mark them late at this point. Hold off on attendance for a few minutes, take your attendance, because we do like the teachers to get their attendance into us as soon as possible. So, all very good questions, yes.
Is there a recommended method? So let's say Stacy and I are both in the same situation. We have kindergartners and we have third graders. Stacy, can you go pick up the third graders and I'll get the kindergartners? And then she and I can just maybe, what, is there, other than writing a note, or is that the best way to do it? Like, please allow my son to be picked up by Stacy Adams? In other words, to cut off having to go between both.
Yeah, that would be exactly what it would have to be a note written by yourself that would say who's picking your child up.
Just do it
Because
that way.
that's what we do, is we have staff members who are present who can confirm with the note with the child as to who they're with. So if you just send a note saying so and so will be picked up today, that's really not specific enough. We need to know who's picking up the child. So that's really the.
Is the nurse still the attendance keeper in the school? Because like in the primary, if your child was going to be absent, I used to email Anne Ray Deldon as well as their teacher saying Gabriella would be absent today. Is that still the procedure here?
Yes.
You email the nurse as well as the teacher?
Email or call into the nurse's office to notify us that your child will be out. I will let you know, because we often get calls from folks who call in ahead, and then you still get the recorded call.
They
You
told
are
us to
going,
ignore
if your
it.
child is absent, whether you notify us or not that your child is absent, we
Yeah.
appreciate that you do, but whether you do or not, our automated system doesn't sync up with that call that you placed in. So if the child's marked absent in our Genesis student information system, there's an automatic call that's going to go out, and there's no way for us to say, don't send to this person because they called in. So don't be startled if you've called in and you still get a call saying your child's absent.
Yeah, it was the same as last year. Okay.
Yeah, sure. So I just wanted to spend some time talking about what's new about third grade, what's a new experience for a child going from second to third grade. We do have teamed teachers in third grade, which means your child will, instead of having a self-contained one homeroom teacher that teaches all the subjects, your child will now have two general education teachers, one that teaches literacy and social studies, and one that teaches math and science. So it's an interesting concept, which I think really, the concept of teacher specialization is really a preferred model. It's a new wave in education, and getting children into classrooms where the teachers are able to really specialize in certain content areas is a really beneficial model to students. We have 6 related arts classes per week. 2 times a week, children will have physical education. Then we have a new course called Global Studies. That's our world language offering. I'll spend some time talking about that in a little bit. We have music, art, and computers. In addition to that, every class is scheduled for library 1 day per week. They will go with their math and science teacher. You'll understand why that is in a minute when I show you a sample schedule. But there's about 25 minutes scheduled in every week on a set day each week. No, not day of the week, and I'll go into that more in a second also, because our schedule can get fairly complicated to explain. But the children will have library once a week, every week for 25 minutes. They'll get their book, they'll get to return their books, and they'll be in and out of the library. We also have an enrichment program that is fluid, that's different than in K through 2. In K through 2, you're identified for enrichment, you're in enrichment for the entire year. Starting in 3rd grade, enrichment is students are pre-assessed and tested at the beginning of new units, and then the children can either place in or not place in, and it's not dependent upon whether they were in during the previous marking period or the previous unit. So we're actually identifying the children who are in needs of enrichment by topic, as opposed to a pre-test at the beginning of the year that holds for the entire year. So what does that mean? It means it is possible that if your child was in enrichment last year, they may not be in during the first unit this year, but that does not mean that they won't be in for the entire year. It just means that they didn't qualify initially during the first unit. Likewise, if your child does place into enrichment during the first marking period, that does not mean that they're going to be in enrichment throughout the entire year, because they will still have to qualify when the next unit comes about. Just something to clarify, because it's very different than it's done in the primary school.
Is that only in math, or is that all topics?
Well,
All
we
studies.
have 3 enrichment services this year, which is an exciting new thing for us in the building. Previously, in the elementary school, we had 1 teacher servicing enrichment, math, and science. That was Mrs. Plumfield. This year, we have 3 teachers servicing enrichment, subject specific. So Mrs. Plumfield is now our science enrichment teacher. She does whole class enrichment, and all of the classes cycle through her classroom. So she does whole class enrichment with science. Math is specific to what I just described, where children are pre-assessed at the beginning of a unit, and then the children are pulled from class during math time to go to enrichment for the remainder of that unit. Not every day, but at certain times for the remainder of the unit. Literacy is similar. It's a little bit different because you have writing, you have reading, you have the different venues towards literacy enrichment. So we're still in the process of defining, because we have not offered enrichment literacy prior to this coming school year. So we're still in the process of defining exactly how that will be, whether it will be a child places into enrichment reading and then would also have to qualify for enrichment writing, or if it's at the beginning of a unit specifically. And so we will absolutely communicate out the process by which we identify once we have that totally ironed out for literacy. But it will not just be a generic child places in, so they're in both reading and writing for the entire year. I can assure you that it won't do that.
You reach
Yes.
out to students.
Teaching math.
Math enrichment is Miss Becker, and literacy enrichment is Mrs. Stadel. So very, very excited. They've been working all summer to really develop their programs, because we are offering much more in terms of enrichment than we ever have in the past. So now getting to the schedule. I just bear with me here, because it can get fairly complicated, but I'm going to do my best to explain why it is that we choose to follow the schedule that we follow and what the academic benefits of it are, because it can get fairly complicated. We will be following a day 1 through 5 rotation, as opposed to a Monday through Friday rotation. So it happens to be this year that the first day of school is a Monday, and we don't have a day of school off until Columbus Day in October. So for the first 5 or 6 weeks, day 1 will be Monday, day 2 will be Tuesday, day 3 will be Wednesday, so on and so forth. Once we have that first Monday, Columbus Day off, Tuesday will be day 1, because it's the new first day. Now the reason why we do that is because we have many more Mondays and Fridays off throughout the school year than we do Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. Based upon that, if we had specifically our related arts classes on a 5-day Monday through Friday schedule, students would have very different experiences based upon what day they fall on the weekly calendar in terms of their related arts schedule. It's very possible that a child who has phys ed on Monday may have 6 less phys ed classes than someone who has it on Tuesday throughout the entire school year. So by going through a day 1 through 5 schedule, we make sure that everyone gets the same experience and gets the same number of classes. And we do post it on our website, and we go out of our way to make sure that the students are aware of what day it is. And if we have a Monday off, reminder, Tuesday is day 2. Remember that Tuesday is day 1. Remember that Tuesday is day 1. And then throughout the year, every day that we have off, it changes. The only caveat to that is an emergency closure. We have it scripted out for the entire school year. So an emergency closure does not apply to pushing back. So let's say we have a Wednesday emergency snow day, and it was supposed to be a day 3. When we come back on Thursday, it's day 4. Because we would have to change the entire schedule out for the entire year. So that's the only caveat to that. But it really is beneficial to students and the experience that they get in all of their classes. Then we get to the A week, B week alternation. Now, so we have days 1 through 5, so we have to know, especially after we get those first few days off, now we have to remember what day of the week it is. And then further than that, we have to know if it's an A week or B week. Now, A week and B week honestly really affects us in the school, but doesn't affect parents all that much, unless a child forgot their math homework and you have to remember, do I have to go in the morning or the afternoon? That's the only way that it would affect a parent, because you're still dropping off your child at the same time, you're still picking up your child at the same time. It's just the routine of the day in terms of when they have their time with one teacher and when they have their time with the other teacher. Now, so to give you a basic idea, the first week of school will be an A week. So the children will spend the morning with their homeroom teacher and the afternoon with their team teacher, with their partner teacher, the homeroom teacher's partner teacher. So that means if they have a literacy homeroom, that means they would have literacy and social studies in the morning, math and science in the afternoon. On a B week, that flips around. And you still attend your homeroom, then you switch and you go and you'll have math in the morning, math and science in the morning, and literacy and social studies in the afternoon. Again, it can get fairly complicated for us in terms of coordinating a schedule, but the benefits far outweigh the complication, because we all know that different people learn in different ways, different people are more apt to learning at different times. If you're an afternoon person and you have literacy in the morning all year long, you're not going to get the same experience in your literacy class as you would if you had it in the afternoon all year long, and vice versa. So by alternating every other week, the teachers get the opportunity to work with both sets of children in the morning and in the afternoon, so that they get the opportunity to really, see, wow, I wonder, is this child accomplishing more in the afternoon? Is this child accomplishing more in the morning? The child gets the change of experience, where they have math 1 week in the morning, 1 week in the afternoon. So it really, from an academic point of view, it's far better, but it does get fairly complicated in terms of the schedule.
Do they go to the same classroom in the morning and just different teacher? So every
No,
morning
children will go to the same homeroom every single morning, whether it's an A week or B week. They'll arrive, the teacher will take attendance in homeroom. Then after attendance is done, both teachers will coordinate and they'll switch. The students will switch, not the teachers. The teacher will stay in their classroom. The students will physically get up, go into the other teacher's classroom, and the students that were in the other teacher's classroom will switch places with them.
Where do they leave all their stuff, like their coats, jackets, book bags?
That all stays in homeroom. That stays in your homeroom. You come in, you get settled in, you put all your things away.
Take what you need.
Your lunch crate goes down to the cafeteria. The whole thing happens during homeroom. So then from there, you then make the switch. And it's just like if you made the switch after lunch and you switched in the afternoon, it's just in the morning.
So,
Yes?
just so I know at home what I'm, trying to keep them on top of. If they're switching for math, do they physically take their books with them, or are the math books always with the switch teacher?
That's teacher dependent.
Okay.
It's not the same in every single case.
Okay.
It's really based on teacher preference. So that's something you'll have to kind of gauge when you get to know the teacher in the beginning of the school year. Yes?
I have 2 questions. I can just imagine the organizational issues for a 3rd grader coming in and dealing with this transition. And I'm assuming that everyone's going to work with them and get exactly. And then from the parents' perspective, the organizational nightmare of when is my kid going where, and you know, we're good for the first 5 weeks because we don't miss one of those days. But once we start missing those days, keeping track of that, I'm just trying to figure out how do I keep that on my calendar so I can help them. Is it posted somewhere? Do we get updates? They're in work with their AP, whatever it is.
Keep it posted in our main office as well as on our website. So that's one of the reasons why when we have an emergency closure, we don't change it, because we'll have the entire year's calendar posted on our website so that you'll know, all the way out. If you want to look to December and know what it's going to be on December 13th, you'll be able to tell that by going onto our school website.
Okay. So on Sunday night or whatever, we can go through. It's week, you know, you're in week A, you're going to math first, whatever it is, or whatever.
Right, and Monday is a day 3, so you know you'll have music on Monday and then art on Tuesday, and you'll be able to see the whole week calendar in advance. Sure.
I can imagine.
That's why it's important that we communicate, because it definitely is. And trust me, I don't even know how well you guys know my history, but I've only been here since October. So myself being here since October, when I first came in and looked at the schedule, and last year A week and B week was only in 5th grade, and this year we're going to 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. So last year I had a different schedule in 5th grade than I did in 3rd and 4th grade. So it was, from my point of view, it was even more complicated because I had to know, oh, it was 5th grade A week, B week, but nobody else is on that same schedule. So it took me till like December, January to kind of have a decent grasp on the schedule, and then, until this summer when I created this year's schedule to really truly understand it, because I got to create it and I got to have my hands in it. Yes?
So the website then for this school, because in the primary school it's more informational, but it sounds like the website for the elementary school is more, it's direct, it's in line with what's going on with them.
It's going to be.
So if you needed a reference of like the week or whatever, you could go on there and look at it.
Our website is one of the things that we're working on. We have a new web technician that's coming in for this year. I'm going to be giving some specific guidance. One of our number one school goal is school and home communication. So we need to make sure that we're providing that avenue for folks to come and get the information wherever it is. So I would expect it to be very much informational.
Okay.
That's the expectation.
As a school, and as well as individual teachers updating their websites, or at least in the beginning of the year, knowing what, Monday is this, Tuesday is this related arts, and Wednesday, the time and where they're going to be, because that was not something on the websites in the primary.
Yeah, I can't say specifically. We don't have a template for teachers as to what their website has to look like, so I can't tell you specifically what the teacher's website will look like, but I can tell you that our teachers they understand the transition from 2nd to 3rd grade. They understand that communication is important. So they're going to, while I can't tell you exactly how it'll look, you're going to get information on what's happening, what's upcoming, those types of things. Mrs. Tarby just stepped into the room. Hello, Mrs. Tarby. How are you? She is our wonderful music teacher.
Hello.
And thank you for joining us. So as you can see here, a sample 3rd grade schedule. And I wanted to provide this to kind of give you a little bit of a perspective, maybe a collective sigh in terms of what we really, our days are jam-packed. This is just a sample. This is of one day. This doesn't mean that every day it will look exactly like this. I even noted on the side that this doesn't even include social studies. Social studies is 3 days per week. So this day that I happen to take the sample of doesn't have social studies in the schedule. But this is an example of a schedule. Students arrive, then we have morning meeting. Morning meeting is part of our, and I always forget the exact title, the Responsive Classroom. It's a character education initiative, and Responsive Classroom basically is a model that we follow to make sure that we're providing children with the character education skills that they need in addition to the curriculum. So morning meeting is a direct derivative of the responsive classroom perspective, and that's an opportunity for teachers to get to have activities and experiences with children that are outside the curriculum. So sometimes they do games with the children, sometimes they'll do just introductory activities, morning compliments, those types of things, to get a feel for how the children are feeling that day. And the thing that's greatest about the morning meetings is that our teachers get the opportunity to really gauge mood in the morning. You get an opportunity, if a child comes in very upset because their fish died the night before, we get to know that during morning meeting as opposed to just jumping right into academics. And it's important to be able to have that, because someone like Ms. G, as a guidance counselor, can then step in, help the child, communicate with the parents, and see what we can do to help that child have a productive day, as opposed to them going through the whole day, us having no idea that something was bothering them, and then us wondering why they didn't retain the information the next day. So morning meeting is a very important piece of what we do here in the school, and in terms of what we offer in terms of character education. Then just an example, a very specific prescribed schedule that teachers follow, the literacy read aloud. This is a teacher reading with the class out loud, followed up by a reader's workshop lesson, followed up by a writer's workshop lesson, jumping then into word study, which is your spelling, grammar, those types of things, which leads you right into lunch. So that's obviously a literacy homeroom on an A week, if you're following me. So that student had literacy in the morning, and then after lunch and recess, we go into the math portion of the day. Math workshop, science, pack up and transition, and in third grade specifically, our students are going to related arts the last period of the day. So in third grade, our children don't have their related arts class until 2:35. So what we do is we give them the opportunity to pack up, get all their homework, everything in that 5 to 10 minute window at the end of the school day. They leave everything settled in the classroom rather than taking it with them to their related arts. They leave everything in their homeroom. They go to their related arts class, 3:15, they're dismissed from related arts. Their teacher goes and gets them, brings them back to class. They pick up their things that have already been packed up, and when our buses are ready and we make the announcement, we dismiss. At about 3:18 this year is when we'll dismiss children to the cafeteria for students who are picked up. And we don't dismiss to the buses until we have clearance that the majority of the buses here and the kindergarten children from the primary school are already out and on the buses. And that's when we dismiss the rest of our students to the buses.
Is there a snack built in, or is there no snack?
We do not have a snack in the third grade schedule. Our lunch is at 11:25.
So it's in the middle of the day.
So it's right smack dab there in the middle.
Okay.
We're assuming the children are eating breakfast before they come to school. So 11:25, that should be an ideal time for them to eat throughout the day. And as you can see, quite frankly, where am I going to put a snack?
I know.
Yeah.
I mean,
I know. It's
we have a lot to accomplish on every given day, and it's.
You mentioned that there's 6 third grade classrooms. Last year there was only 5 at the primary. Does that just mean there's more student, or does it actually mean the class sizes will be decreased?
Class sizes will be decreased. We have 6 homerooms. Now, the teaming structure that we have in our school really kind of confines us to, we have to have an even number of teachers. So it's either 6 or it's 4
Right.
or 8. But this year we have the approximate same number of students that were in second grade. But in order to maintain our teaming structure, which we value, we have 6 homeroom teachers, which is what we had last year. Last year, average class size was about 20 in third grade. This year, it's going to be about 17.
That's good.
So yeah, it's very nice.
Mr. Rob,
Yes.
the fourth grade teachers used to put the homework on the website every night. Are the third graders, teachers going to do the same thing? Because that might help some people.
Again, I don't want to say definitively yes, because we don't have a specific template that teachers have to follow in terms of their website. My guess is that some do, but I don't want to say yes, everyone does, because I don't know that to be a fact. But the homework, it is the expectation in third grade that the children are able to copy down their homework, know their assignment. That doesn't mean that we take a hard line, and if the student doesn't write it down, we don't communicate that information.
It was really nice. Because my second grader would come home with his boy, and I'd be like, what's for homework? And he'd tell me something, or he'd have something written on that paper, and I couldn't even read it. And so it was so nice for the fourth graders that I could spy what the homework was. And then I just let you follow.
I believe they do, right? The third graders, they get the agenda books? Yeah. Yes, and that's where they'll write their homework on a daily basis, right in there. All right, so now let's talk about the transition to third grade. Don't know if you guys have heard the language of Common Core. Common Core is the new set of national standards that we've been under for the last couple of years. All 46 out of the 50 states have adopted the Common Core standards. Just a little bit of a backdrop for you. The way standards used to work was that each state was responsible for developing their own standards and to identify what children would learn at each grade level. That has since been revised and changed to now it's still the state's responsibility to adopt the standards, but we have a common national set of standards called the Common Core Standards for math and literacy. So 46 out of the 50 states have adopted those Common Core standards. We are one of them. They are rigorous, they are challenging, they have very high expectations of children. So that being said, logically the transition to the Common Core was challenging. Then that only kind of magnifies the transition from second grade to third grade, which has always been the largest academic leap for children. If you think about it, when you go from second grade to third grade, you really go from learning to read to reading to learn. And that's a very different model for children. You spend your primary years learning how to be a good reader and learning how to be a fluent reader. And then you get into third grade, and for the rest of your years, you're reading so that you can learn something. You're reading to learn. And it's kind of where the rubber meets the road, so to speak. And positive experiences in third grade, there's a lot of research out there that I've been kind of collecting for myself. There's a lot of research out there that says it's a make or break year for children. And that's part of the importance of having this open communication now. And trust me, I'm not trying to scare anybody. I'm not, and I'm sorry if I am, but I have, on a personal note, I have 3 elementary age boys myself. I have one going into first grade, one going into third grade, and one going into fourth grade. My 4th grader just went through 3rd grade last year. It is significantly different for a child in 3rd grade than it is for a child in 2nd grade. We expect more of children. We expect that they don't need as much hand-holding. That doesn't mean we don't hold their hands, and it doesn't mean we don't give them what they need, but we expect more of the children. And we expect that the children are now able to read to learn. So, you know, it's very different. And having a child going into 3rd grade myself, I'm right there with you. I know, having gone through it once already, I kind of am preparing for it. But it's important that we all have that understanding that this is a challenging year. It's not just the transition from one school to the next. If we were at one K through 5 school, the 2nd grade to 3rd grade transition is still the biggest academic leap that children have in all of K through 12. Did I cover everything here? Also the first year of standardized testing. So we have NJ Ask 3 in May. Ms. G is also, she wears many hats. She is our testing coordinator, as well as our anti-bullying specialist and our 504 coordinator and INRS committee chairperson. So she is our testing coordinator. We test in grades 3, 4, and 5, so all 3 of our grades test here. Just to kind of go on a side note a little bit, standardized testing, I know lots of people have different perspectives on the importance of standardized testing, and people have different viewpoints on whether we should or we shouldn't, and I think one of the things that we have to really take into consideration is it's almost, when you look in the newspaper and you view the school report cards, it's a way for schools and communities to compare one school to the next. And while we may agree or we may disagree with the idea of giving children a high-stakes test, it is important that we, in some way, in some metric, compare children and compare schools and compare the work that's being done within the schools. So it's an essential piece of what we do. It's stressful for children. It's stressful for educators, I assure you. But it's important. It's important work, and we do the best we can to try and stress that it's not anything in any way something that children should be fearful of. It's the opportunity to show what you know. It's an opportunity to show off the work that you've done. It's an opportunity to be proud of the hard work that you've done all year long, and now you get the opportunity to show how much you know. And really, that's the concept behind it. That's how we present it here inside the school. And when you look at it that way, and if the children really buy into it, which I think they did last year through our pep rally and everything that we did for NJ Ask, you get a different perspective. You take the fear out of it, and you take the excitement and bring the excitement into it, and you give children kind of a motivation to want to go and do really well. Yes.
I know the standardized testing is a way for the schools to gauge how they're performing, but is it actually used like on a student-by-student basis for like their own particular placement or needs, or is it looked at like down to the student level, saying, well, this kid's really like...
Yes, in many ways, yes. The first time it actually specifically affects placement is when children go to middle school, because that's when they start to homogeneously group and identify advanced students.
And this is,
spread
the
it
New
out.
Jersey ASP is used to help do
And
that.
they do use it as part of their metric for identifying. Here within the school, we use that data on a local level. So a teacher gets that data back, and the teacher gets to really dive into the data and see, how did this child perform? Where were their strengths? Where were their weaknesses? Where do I need? What areas do I need to emphasize? If there's a theme for the whole group, is there something that needs to be, provided with greater emphasis than something else? We do it on a school basis to review kind of our curriculum in terms of if there's an area that our school was weak. That's obviously an area that we need to take a good look at how we can improve what we're doing within the school. So we definitely use that data.
Okay.
Absolutely.
This may be a stupid question, but
No,
do the results get shared with us?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Both for our child and the school?
You're still quite a ways out, because those reports go home the October after your child took the assessment. So you're looking at a year from October is when you'll get the results on how your child did on their third grade NJS.
Okay.
Yes.
Is this the last year for ASK?
This
Is
is
that
the
for
last
sure?
year, yes.
And then we move to the
In
park.
2014-15, we go to the park assessment, which is similar to the Common Core, how it went national. The park assessment is one of two different assessments that's gone regional or national. Most of the East Coast is taking the park assessment. Most of the West Coast is taking the Smarter Balanced assessment. They're basically the same thing. They're just, catchy phrases, and park is an acronym for partnership for something in the Common Core. So really, park is PARCC, and that's you'll hear that more. This year it's NJ Ask. After that, you'll hear park for the remaining years that your children are in.
So there's less state by state, and it's getting more national.
Specifically, yep. It's instead of being New Jersey's assessment,
Yeah.
it's now, this is the assessment. We can compare students in New Jersey specifically to students in Arkansas, say for example, which we were never able to do
Right.
before because their assessment was
Everybody
very
did their
different than
own.
our assessment. Right. Yes.
This may be a little off topic, but the park is a computerized test. How is Colts Net going to administer that? What are they?
I can't answer that one yet. We've got a year and a half before we have to figure that out. We're already working on that. They have provided a great deal of background in terms of the specifications that we'll have to apply. So we are already reviewing and identifying where we stand currently, what we will need to invest in order to be able to be ready to implement the park. I think we're in good position though. Everything we've identified so far is we're in good position.
When you administer the ask, are you administering this year to all three grades at the same time, or are you doing third and fourth separate?
No, we have third and fourth take it together, and fifth and sixth take it together. So we only have fifth grade in this building, and only sixth grade at the middle school, and then the middle school does seventh and eighth at the same time. So they're in 2-year bands. All right, and then the last piece on this transition to third grade is stamina. Stamina is another thing, when you think about it, in a 45-minute writer's workshop lesson, there's a 10 to 15-minute mini lesson in the beginning of the period, and then for the bulk of the remainder of the period, students are writing independently. So that means, potentially for a half an hour, a child is expected to sit down and be able to write on a topic. So, stamina is something that comes into play. And certainly, going back to standardized testing, on the standardized test, that's like a marathon. The tests are 2 to 3 hours a day, an hour and a half to 2.5 hours on any given day, and children are expected to be able to work through. And if you don't have that stamina built up, it's kind of like taking the analogy that I've heard someone use recently is, it's kind of like taking a sprinter and putting them in a marathon and expecting them to do well. Well, if you've never worked for an extended period of time, and you've never been expected to work for an extended period of time, and you've always been given little short snippets, And then you're expected to take an assessment that lasts 2 hours and sections that last as long as 45 minutes. It's really unfair. We're not preparing our children properly to be able to be successful. So that's something that we're also mindful of and we get it, trust me, we get it. They're little, they were second graders, now they're coming into third grade. But we have to work their stamina up. We have to build them up to it, and we that's an obligation of ours to get the children prepared so that when they get to fourth grade, they have even more stamina. And when they get to fifth grade, they're even built up even more than that. And it's a logical progression, the scaffolded progression as we go. Again, not trying to scare you, just want to make sure everybody's in the know. All right, so what can you expect from us? Primary, most important thing that we do is we provide a safe and secure learning environment for your child. We take very specific precautions in terms of safety and security. We are constantly reviewing our procedures. One of the things that I can say I'm most proud of, and I really can't take any credit for it because I wasn't here when the plans were established, but when some of the tragedies occurred last year, we didn't have to jump and be quick to change our plans because we had good plans in place already in the event of an emergency or a situation that we should never be faced with. We have our plans in place. We do not publish those plans, so it's kind of a trust basis. You have to just kind of trust us and believe it. It wouldn't be secure if we told everybody what our plans are. So we do spend a lot of time as an administrative team. We include our staff. We include the perspectives of stakeholders in terms of how we go about making sure that we are as safe as we can possibly be inside of our schools, and that is our #1 priority, that when you send your children to us, that you can rest easy knowing that we're going to do everything possible within our power to protect and make sure that your children are safe. We will make sure that we provide you with frequent information regarding your child's progress. That does not mean when the report card comes home 4 times a year you find out how your child is doing. That's not satisfactory. I wouldn't expect that from my child's school, and I can't expect that you would expect that from us as a school. So we will be providing you with regular feedback. That doesn't mean there's going to be a specific timetable that you're going to get specific information, but it's a specific goal of ours as a school is to make sure that we're providing as much valuable, constructive feedback as we possibly can on a regular basis. We'll be providing you with updates and information regarding on what we're working on in school and how you can support this learning at home. This is kind of where I go off on my little tangent here and tell my personal anecdote of why this is such an important piece to me. Now, I'm kind of in my wheelhouse right now because I have 3 kids just about the same age of the children in this school. So I use my children's school kind of as a guinea pig for the things that I see and the things that I hear in the community about, and then I try and bring them back and say, well, we can do that better here. An example is, and let me preface this by saying, education has changed so much since we went to school. The way we teach, the manners in which we teach, the subjects, quite frankly, that we teach. Literacy used to be reading and writing lumped together. Now it's reading and writing separated out as 2 basically different subjects. That being said, if we don't communicate as a school to parents why we're doing things the way we're doing them, why they're different than they used to be, how can we expect parents to be able to foster and facilitate the learning that we're offering in school at home? We can't. I'll give you an example. My previous role before I came here was math and science supervisor for a K-8 school district. So here I thought that I would have no problem with 2nd grade math. So my 2nd grader at the time, he's my oldest, but he was in 2nd grade at the time, he came home from school, they were just starting regrouping. So they were just, so now it's regrouping. When it's adding, we used to call it carrying, and when it's subtracting, we used to call it borrowing. Now it's regrouping. Both addition, subtraction is regrouping. So the language has changed first of all. The very first topic and the very first lesson of the first topic in 2nd grade, and you probably are all familiar with this because you've just been through it, was they gave the child a 100 chart, and instead of actually showing the standard algorithm where you line 2 numbers up over top of one another and actually follow the steps that we all learned, they give a kid a 100 chart. They say, if you want to, say, for example, add 15 to 18, you start at 18, you count down 10, and over 5. And my son came home with this as homework, and he started doing it. I said, why are you doing it that way? This is the way my teacher showed me to do it. This is my homework. He said, no. Here, do it this way. Look at this. Here's a piece of paper. Look, put one over the other. Add your ones. If you have 13, put the 3 at the bottom, put the 1 up at the top, and then put 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 3, so it's 33. He looked at me like I was nuts. What are you talking about? Of course, I said, you carry the 1. What are you talking about? They hadn't even talked regrouping yet at that point. They were just simply looking at the 100 chart and conceptualizing what regrouping was. I didn't know that at the time. So I'm arguing with him. No, do it this way. They're going to get to it this way eventually anyway. So you might as well just learn how to do it now. You might as well just do it. Just do it this way. And he put, no, my teacher. And he starts crying, and I start getting frustrated. And I'm like, but JR, I'm a math and science supervisor. You don't think I know how to do this? I'm showing you. And I'm just dad to him. He doesn't know what any of that means. He doesn't know that I supervise the teachers, right? So then it just so happened that we were reviewing the same Envision math program in Howell at the time. So I had access to teachers' editions and everything. So I went to the computer. I took a step away from him because I saw I wasn't getting anywhere with him. I went, I looked back, I looked up the topics, and then I kind of followed the progression of why they do it the way they do it. And then it kind of clicked for me. Now I'm an educator, so I was able to do that. I was able to put it together. A parent who's not an educator doesn't have the luxury of being able to do that, put it together, and go and have those resources. So it kind of dawned on me right then and there, and this is an example I've used 100 times, of we need to make sure that we understand that parents who are not in the education business understand how we teach and why we teach so that they can help at home. Because if they're undoing at home, like I was doing with my own son, what the child did in school that day, that's not helping anybody. That's not helping the parent who's frustrated. That's not helping the child who's frustrated, and it's certainly not helping the teacher who the next day has to undo what the parent did that night to get the child going in the other direction. So long and short of it was, I figured out, after some frustration, I was able to figure out why they teach it that way. And that goes into, the understanding and the trust that has to be between the parent and the teacher. There's a research basis for why we teach it that way. And I'm sorry that I'm getting so long-winded in this, but I think it's important. When I was in school, I was always strong in math. I just was good. I was able to put numbers together. They made sense. I could close my eyes. I could figure it out. I could do things. My wife, who went through a very similar educational program, was always bad at math. And she learned it the same way I did. And to this day, she thinks she's bad at math, and she thinks she can't do math, and she comes to me with her math problems. And when she's measuring something, she says, just double check me to make sure I'm right, because she doesn't have any faith in herself. Now, I was fortunate that I was able to kind of just be able to do it. It wasn't the way I was taught. It just clicked for me. I was able to do it. It was innate within me. Some people have that, some people don't. Well, the way we teach it today is based upon the research of why the people who just innately get it. And then we teach that to everyone. So everybody can get it. So we don't have anybody like my wife who's at home at 35 years old saying, I don't know how to do this. So really, when you think about just that specific concept, why do we start with the hundreds chart? You start with the hundreds chart so the child can see the numbers, all the numbers, what they are. Then we add on 10. So we see you're going, when you add 10 to 15, you get 25. Now we're going to add on our ones. When the children start out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I'm at 30. My 2 just changed to a 3. You see at the earliest stage the regrouping. You physically see it on the hundreds chart. Then you have to, it's kind of like hitting return on a typewriter. Now you got to go all the way back over here to the other side of the hundreds chart and add on, what would it be? It would be 6, 7, 8. So now you get to 33. And the kids see it, and they spend a whole topic, not a topic, a lesson. They spend a lesson just doing it that way. And what I realized with my son, many of you probably saw this with your children in 2nd grade, after that first lesson, and a few days later of having done that repeatedly, he was able to close his eyes, visualize his hundreds chart, and add mentally. And it doesn't work all the time, but for the very basic type stuff, he was able to just Close his eyes, visualize his hunger chart, and see it. See it in his own mind and understand it. Well, 4 lessons later, when they finally got to regrouping, he was then able to understand why you can't have 13 ones and then have 10s. You have to bring your 1 over and add it on to the other 10s. And he was cognitively able to understand it better, and all children are cognitively able to understand it better. Now, that's just a single example of many things that we do throughout the progression of education. It's a lot harder to give specific examples in reading and writing, because in reading and writing, it's much more teacher dependent in the classroom. We don't have a program like Envision Math that we can specifically reference a page number when we're talking about something. So one of the biggest challenges that we face is communicating to parents. For math, as long as we're mindful of making sure we're communicating, we can do that. We can make sure that parents understand why we do it the way we do it. Reading is much more difficult because it's so much classroom-driven, classroom-specific in terms of what's happening. It's a real challenge to communicate out why we did something the way we did it today in class and why we're going to ask you to facilitate it in the same way at home. And so that's something that we're working on. And you know, education is a constant work in progress, and it's things that we're continuing to emphasize. So that was kind of a long-winded description of why it's important that we update you on what we're working on in school and how we're working on it in school.
Well, I just wanted to say thank you because I have to tell you, that actually is now I can understand better what was going on in math last year with my son, because he would come home with these lessons, and I taught first grade for years. I say to my husband, I understand why are they doing this? It's just more confusing this way. It's confusing to me. And half the time he's like, well, Mom, I got it this way. I did this and this. Okay, it's right, so we'll go with it. But
that's not how I would have shown you to do it.
That's not how I would have done
Right.
it.
Right.
But they get it, and I never really did understand why it felt so drawn out with regrouping in particular. It felt like lessons and lessons of stuff that to me weren't necessary. But
the new standards specifically reference the ability to mentally calculate and be fluent with numbers. So one of the nice things about the standards is it narrows down the scope of how much we have to teach, but it expects us to go much deeper and have much higher expectations of what children can do within that standard. So it's kind of like as opposed to a mile wide and an inch deep approach, it's a mile deep and an inch wide approach, but we have to go much deeper into it. And we have to make sure children truly understand. So what we're going for is the long-term retention, the long-term comprehension and understanding. So when children they know, they understand what it is that they're doing with these numbers. What do these numbers mean? What does this decimal mean? What does this fraction mean? What is it? So it's a process, and we get it, and it's something that we're talking about because the vast majority of parents who are not presently in education and working at it don't see the underlying of why we're doing things the way we're doing it. So we have to communicate that out. We do have high expectations of the work that we do within this building for each child. I like to think that starts with me, but it really doesn't. When I got here, our teachers already had extremely high expectations. Our teachers are extremely hard-working educators. I'd like to think that, as building leader, that I can help facilitate that. But that was the structure that was already in place. I certainly have high expectations of myself and the work that we'll do here for your children, because that's what we're here for, is making sure that your children get everything out of their education that they possibly can. We also have high expectations of the work that your child will do, and we will not apologize for that. I would hope that you have high expectations of the work that your child will do, and if we don't have the highest expectations, we're not going to get as much out of your child as your child is capable of. So, if you want us to back off and ease up, come and let us know. It doesn't mean we will, but at least we'll understand your point of view and your perspective on it. We have an obligation to provide these children with the highest quality education we can, and we're gonna push hard to make sure that happens. We talked a little bit about the services, the enrichment positions. In terms of really we went into it in quite a bit of detail already, but we have the 3 positions. The children will be, who are in enrichment classes, will be pulled from class We are trying our best to structure it, and I think we're in a place where we'll be able to structure it where children are pulled from the class that they have done so well on the pre-assessment that missing that class will not have a negative impact. We don't want to take a child who's been placed in enrichment math and pull them out of reading, because just because they're in enrichment math doesn't mean that they're able to miss the reading class. In many cases, the children are in enrichment in all 3 subjects, or across the board. But we want to make sure that we're as specific and as logical as we can in terms of what we're doing and when we're doing it. We offer a comprehensive, wonderful special education program here in which children get the needs that they have met. The children, for those of you who have heard the language of an individualized education program, or an IEP, that's children with children in needs of special services have an IEP, and the IEP specifically identifies what the children are working towards during that school year, and it's not always the same as what it is for children who do not have the need for special services. So I just want to, sometimes I think we forget as educators that not everyone understands the whole structure of the way things go, and so it's important to communicate that out. We also have a basic skills program. Basic skills, similar to enrichment. Our goal is to identify where children have the greatest needs and how we can try and meet those needs, bridge those gaps that have happened somewhere along the line, one way or another, and then mend those fences, so to speak, so that children can get back to where they need to be, back to working at grade level in the areas that they are. We have 2 basic skills teachers. They do specialize as well. We have a literacy basic skills teacher and a math basic skills teacher. Literacy is Mrs. Filiano. Math is Mrs. Impreveduto. I've been sitting with them over the summer and going over the schedule. Again, based upon how complicated our schedule is, you can only imagine how it is for a teacher to work across multiple grade levels and be able to work with children. So it is a challenge, but I think we're in a good place with that in terms of the scheduling as well. We already talked about our guidance counselor and all the wonderful things she does and all the hats that she wears. Instrumental music starts in 4th grade. Mrs. Tarby is our vocal music teacher, and she teaches in our related arts progression. She teaches music. Mrs. Chandler is our instrumental music teacher. She's here in the building 3 days a week, and starting in 4th grade, we have a 4th grade band, and we have a 5th grade band. Students get specialized instruction in an instrument, and then they're part of the greater band, and the whole band comes together. One of the highlights for me of last year was to be at the band and choral performances, where the children really got an opportunity to show off the amazing progress that they make. The 4th grade band performed first at the concert, and I don't know if any of you were there or not, but the 4th grade band was amazing. And especially being someone who doesn't play an instrument, wishes I did, wishes I had learned that when I was a kid. I'm like, wow, it's amazing. They're 4th grade, they can do that. They come together, they put it together. And then the 5th grade went on. And no offense to the 4th grade, because they were awesome, but the 5th grade just blew the 4th grade out of the water. And when you think about it, it's logical. They've had a whole extra year of working together and building that progression. And I can't wait to hear the past year's 4th graders this year as 5th graders, because they just grow and flourish right into it. We also, Mrs. Darby also does wonderful things with the choral programs. We have the players, which is that 4th and 5th grade also?
Yes.
Players is 4th and 5th grade also, and the harmonies and the way they pull things together and the talent that we have. Mrs. Tarby was 11, right? 11 students from this school, 4th and 5th grade combined, made the New Jersey Honors Choir this year out of, what was it, 120?
Yes.
There's 120 kids in the whole state in the New Jersey Honors Choir at grades 4 and 5, and we had 11 of them from this building. I'm sorry?
It's even 6th grade.
Oh, it goes up through 6th grade, so look at that. So I'm even underselling it. Out of 4th through 6th grade, 120 students, and just in the 4th and 5th grade in this building, we had 11 of them. So that's a testament to the work that Mrs. Tarby does, but also to the talent that we have. And we have a lot of great services that we offer, a lot of great things that happen. And then we do also offer after-school clubs. The after-school clubs range from drama performances to talent shows to chess. We're going out of our way to try and get those offerings up and running as soon as possible this year. with me transitioning in last year in October, we didn't actually get our clubs up and running until I think it was late February, and that was kind of unfortunate. So we're going out of our way to try and have our clubs up and running by October this year, just to provide those opportunities for children. I should share with you that we do have a pay to participate program in effect. I don't know how much of that really came into play at the primary school. I don't know how many opportunities there were, but starting in 3rd grade here in the building, if a child wants to participate in an after-school activity, one activity or 27 activities, there's a one-time $100 fee that goes to fund those activities. So we strongly encourage children to get involved in more than one, because the economics of it make more sense when you break it out. They're all really great programs and the children enjoy them, and but be on the lookout for those club opportunities when they come in. All right. Yeah.
They're all right after school?
They are right after school.
And there's
Yes.
no...
There are occasional times where there will be meetings in the morning. Clubs are usually after school. Band sometimes has groups in the morning. Chorus.
Before school.
Band is before
Players
school.
and choir before school.
So
And
you're
you're on your own with transportation, right?
yes, correct. Correct. Before and after school, we transport students at the start of the school day and the end of the school day. We don't have a late bus or anything like that.
I just wanted to confirm, okay.
Sure. Yeah, sure.
But there's the clubs, the others are for 4th and 5th grade. There's clubs for 3rd grade?
There are some clubs that are for 3rd grade. There are some that are open to all 3 grades. There are some that will be specific to just say 3rd or just 3rd and 4th, depending upon the structure. And these are staff members actually, create the ideas behind them and offer and facilitate the clubs. So there's all sorts of different structures that you can find. Some of them are 2 days a week. Some of them are 1 day a week. It really just depends upon the structure of the club itself.
Once they're up and running, we find them through a
We'll
flyer or
communicate it
some
all to you.
website?
We will, we'll probably through an e-alert of some sort notify you that the information's coming out. We'll put it on our website. We'll get it to you in as many different avenues as we can. So let's talk about what we expect from you now. All right, I get to turn the tables on you a little bit. We do strongly emphasize the importance of that, conversation at home about the importance of academic progress and academic achievement. There's so much research out there that just shows the direct correlation between parent involvement in their child's education and child success. And I think, it's important that we get that message out, that there's no greater advocate for your child than yourself, and there's no greater advocate for your child's education than yourself. I like to think that I'm a great advocate for your child's education, and I am, but you are the person who taught your child how to talk, who taught your child how to use the potty, who has started all those things, those basic things. You need to stay involved. You need to stay as involved as possible. And what I've learned personally is when your children go to kindergarten, we know our child's all of our 3 kids had the same kindergarten teacher. She gives us a hug and a kiss when we see her, and totally different experience than we have with any other of our children's teachers. And that was because of, it's emotional to send your child to someone for the first time and trust them and have that experience. And we're so tightly ingrained to what's happening in that early development. And then what happens with our children as they go up the line is, it's not that we get disinterested, it's that we, I think, kind of just take more and more of a step back. And we should, but we have to do so in a way that's still very supportive of the child's education. We want to make sure, and I would guess that the fact that you've taken your time out on this beautiful day to be here and listen to me talk on and on and on and on about all the stuff that's happening here in the school, you're going to be those great advocates. But it's important that we continue to reinforce the fact that your involvement has a huge impact, a direct correlation. All the research shows on how successful your child will be through school. So please continue that. Don't, as your child goes through 3rd and 4th and 5th, peel back and kind of just trust that things are going well. Stay involved. Please, so we encourage you. We want you to stay involved. We need you to stay involved so that we can get as much out of your children as we need to, and that as you would hope that your children will get. We expect from you frequent communication. It's a two-way street. It's not, we will do our best to communicate with you, but we need to know what's going on as well. Whether it's something as simple as, so-and-so really didn't understand this assignment and I wasn't able to help them with it last night. Maybe you can reinforce it or send something to me to help them work with this. That's great communication. Teachers value that and appreciate that. To know that you're taking the time to reach out and ask our point of view and ask why we're doing it this way and what it is. That's awesome communication. It's very important that whatever it is, that two-way street of communication continues to stay open.
Is there any requirement on the part of the teachers to respond to the parents? Because I have made phone calls, I have dropped emails, and certain teachers will let you know call versus email or email versus call. But is there any sort of requirement on your part of your teachers to respond back to us in a certain medium by a certain time frame?
To answer, they have to respond as quickly as they can. I don't have a specific 24-hour, you must respond within 24-hour approach.
Some teachers are fantastic, they'll call you immediately, and then others may be several days to a week.
Yeah, no, I would have an issue. Now you have to understand, things happen. Teachers get sick. So there are exceptions to the rule. There are, certainly if you email a teacher on a Friday at 7 o'clock and you don't hear back till Monday at 2:15, I think that's within the scope of reason.
Of course.
But at the same time, if you send a teacher an email on Monday at noon and they've been at work all week long and it's Thursday and they still haven't responded to you, it's possible that email got buried and it was overlooked. Certainly reach out again. I would hope that everyone has a strong enough relationship with their child's teacher where they can say, hey, I'm sorry to reach out again. I hadn't heard back from you. Just, figure in your email, the email probably got buried. And it happens to me. I'll get an email from a parent. I'll have all intention of responding. And then the next thing you know, a week's gone by and I happen to find this email down at the bottom of my inbox that I never got around to responding to. And, but
I think it just helps for us as parents to know what your expectations of your teachers are.
Well, yeah, my expectation is that you respond as soon as possible, without disrupting the flow of your day and your students. I would never want a teacher to, and I know that you wouldn't expect this, but I would never want a teacher to stop a lesson to go and respond. So that's why, lunchtime, teachers have to get their lunch, but there is time built in at some point where
I'm not even looking for 24 hours, but like I said, it's very teacher dependent. Most have been very good, but there are several I've come across where it's a week, it's more than a week, it's recurring, it's not like a one-time.
I would say if you haven't heard back from the teacher within a couple of days, that you should reach out again.
Okay.
Maybe in a different medium too, because I got to tell you, I get so few phone messages that I don't check my.
Yeah.
So
and some teachers are very specific, say email.
If you send me an email, I'll get right back to you.
Right.
But if you leave me a message on the phone, I may not have listened to my messages that day.
Right.
So try your thing.
Sure.
And I just want to add, we're talking a lot about academics, but it's the same with me in the guidance department. Daily, parents will call me or email. For me, email is better because I'm on my laptop, all the time. I do constantly check my messages because that is another avenue where parents will call, but it's daily, where I'll get phone calls, listen, I just dropped my daughter off and she's upset about this, or I just want to give you a heads up that so-and-so in my family isn't doing well, or this or that, or, I'm very good with keeping an eye out for you while they're here. Communicating with teachers just so you know if so-and-so's a little bit off today, parents gave me permission to share with you that this is something that's going on at home, and that communication is constantly open between you and I. So just know that I'm very easy to reach.
I just have a question. If there's an issue in school and you need to speak to a child, do you notify the parents that you're talking with the child?
Not always, not 100% of the time. I think depends on the situation. If it's a conflict that happened out on the playground that they weren't sharing the tire swing and they were able to resolve it, we have amazing staff outside, Mrs. Darby included, that help them use conflict resolution to solve their problems. So in that case, I don't know if I will, but yes, I will contact parents involved and let them know this happened, they were upset, especially if it caused interruption to their day.
It's totally off topic, but you mentioned the playground. Who is outside with the kids on the playground? Is it,
Plus
it's staff, it's
Uh-huh.
not like
Yes, it's-
lunchies or?
No, we have lunch aids in the cafeteria, but we have, we're basically our related art staff
The
is
staff
out,
is
is outside
okay.
during recess, and
Or third
in most cases, we have 4 teachers that are out there with different posts set up, because we have a great big open space.
Yeah.
We don't want to restrict children to
Right.
the areas that they can go, but we also have to make sure that we're monitoring their behavior while we're out there. So.
Yeah, okay.
And
Yeah.
please communicate with us if you find out who the staff is, and communicate with us if you think there's an issue that we need to keep an eye on.
Okay.
Because we certainly will do that. We'll help children. We try to set up friendships sometimes with children. We see children who are rolling around by themselves, or if they're always having conflicts with the same child, we can help them through that, figure out how to
Okay.
work that out.
Great, thank you.
But we don't know if they don't tell us, so.
Are third graders at recess by themselves?
Yes.
Or they go, and they're in the lunchroom then by themselves as well?
Correct. So where did I leave off here? A quiet working space at home to complete assignments, that's important. I hope that everyone has that. I realize that, everyone's home situation is unique and different, and we can't always offer that. I've got 3 kids, so the kitchen table doesn't work for us. They have to go to their rooms and do their homework, because if I have 3 kids sitting at the same table doing their homework, nothing gets done. They fight, they argue, they this, they that. So it's important to have a space, a regular, space that a child knows that this is where they go and they do their work, and it becomes routine for them. Please be involved in your child's homework. That doesn't mean you have to sit with them and do everything with them, like you probably did when they were in kindergarten. But at the very least, make sure that you're taking a look and seeing what the child's doing, and make sure that it's accurate. Nothing more frustrating as a teacher than when a child comes in and says, "Here's my homework," and you look at it and it's all wrong. And okay, now, and that happens. Don't get me, and that's part of the job, is to figure out why did the child do it wrong, what's happening, where is it. But if a parent sees that the child struggled through it, doesn't mean they have to go through and reteach it to the child, doesn't mean they have to go through and correct every answer. But at least some sort of communication from the parent saying, "I did look over this, I realized that the work might not be accurate, I wasn't sure how to work with them on this, so if you could please just provide whatever support." Those types of things are very important for us to know that there is an involvement, there is parent involvement in the process. Yes.
I always struggle with this. How far do you go with your kids with doing their homework?
Well, you don't do it for them. But I know some. And sometimes, I've been through that frustration. That's part of what, like I said before, I'm kind of in the wheelhouse for being a principal of a 3, 4, 5 school. I'm living it as well. I don't get to get out of here. I leave here and I go home to the other end of it. I get to go and see the back end of what's happening all day. I've been there on the marathon homeworks where the kid is, just for some reason not making any progress and not getting anywhere. And you're like, "I just want you to be done already, just be done." And you want to just write the answers down on the paper so that they can just be done and go do something, stop crying and the whole thing. I've been there.
Are they, this may be a little bit off topic, are they still graded the same way with the 1, 2, 3, 4s in third grade?
Yes,
or-
let me just finish answering her question, and
Oh,
then
sorry.
yeah, absolutely. So you definitely want to be supportive. You have to be careful that if my oldest one is a master manipulator, he will question and question and question until he gets you to give so many hints that the answer is there right in front of him, as opposed to actually figuring it out and doing it for himself.
I'm more always worried with the writing. She's very, very slow, and it's not a good speller. It's never punctuation. How much do I make her go back and fix it and fix it and fix it and fix it?
That's
the spelling. Well, how do I spell it? If
and
not
that's
in there for
part of
3
that
weeks.
communication. That's not even a question I should answer.
The teacher.
The teacher should answer that question, because the teacher will have a preference in terms
Okay.
of how that works. So
Fair
definitely, that's a great question to lead out with the
Fair
teacher.
enough.
And then talking about the report card, I actually just we did some revisions of our report cards in grades 4 and 5. Grade 3 is going to be very much a continuation of what you're used to with the standards-based model, where you'll see a standard listed and a score of 1 through 4, with a 1 being not meeting the standards, a 2 being progressing towards, and I don't use the exact language, but a 3 being meeting the standards and a 4 being above and beyond, so to speak. So that'll be the same type of report card that you'll be seeing in 3rd grade. And we'll now be seeing that in 4th grade and 5th grade as well, because we've even extended that out there.
Just building on what you were saying before, math is so easy because you either have a right or
You're
wrong
right or
answer.
wrong.
Now writing, I always look at my child's writing and I say, oh God, they really, like, it just doesn't look right, and I don't know where he's supposed to be at with it. And I wish instead of like a star on it or a smiley face, we got a 1, 2, 3, 4 on the top of the page so we know
The homework and the feedback.
if this is not where he should be. Like, should I be doing more with writing? And I think that's the hardest one to really
Yeah, it is.
gauge.
It is.
And when he comes with stuff spelled wrong and they don't fix it, it drives me crazy.
And back to that communication. Again, writing is not about spelling. Spelling is part of
Right.
word study. It's outside, and I get it. It drives me crazy too. Again, I'll give you the personal anecdote. My oldest, every word he spells completely phonetically.
Right.
Half of his words are spelled wrong in everything he writes. But if you read it, it all flows. You know what he's writing.
I don't know what he's writing half the time.
Well,
it's like this long. I'm like, what is that
Now,
word?
also remember, he's a year older. He's going into 4th grade, so he's in a slightly different developmental stage. But when I read his work, it's so frustrating because I'm like, really? That's a kindergarten sight word, and you spelled it wrong. When, W-E-N. But when, W-E-N. Okay, when I read it, I know what it says. It's just not spelled correctly. So that's something we have to get past in writing. Writing is about what did you write? What was the content? How did it flow? It's not about whether the words are spelled right or wrong, and punctuation is something that comes with time. So it's that getting the thoughts onto the paper are more important. And it is a very
It's a
big
change
change.
from when we were kids where spelling counted.
Yeah, it's much more important to be able to get your thoughts out in a logical, sequential manner than it is to be able to make sure that every word is spelled right. Because I'm going to be honest with you, some folks don't like this answer, but we have spell check. We have, voice dictation. We have these technologies that as these children get ready to go to college and into their career, the skills that were so important years ago are, I don't want to say they're not important, because I get myself in trouble when I say that, but they're not career skills that you're going to necessarily need to be able to apply, because there's all these different technologies.
That's like saying they have a calculator, so I learn math.
As a parent, that's a really tough pill to
It's
swallow.
hard for me.
I get it, and that's why I'm saying it's not always, and it's not universal. And trust me, I'm not saying spelling doesn't matter, but when in writing specifically,
Right.
when writing, the goal and the standard is that the child is able to, write with logic and sequence, with supporting, details. For example, if that's a standard, then what's important is that the child is able to do those things. Spelling is nowhere in that rubric, so to speak, of, how you did on that assignment. It's about getting your thoughts out. It's about supporting your thoughts. And then there's a whole other avenue for spelling. Spelling is still something that we're assessing. It's just not something that's part of the writing. And, and again, don't get me wrong, there are teachers who will sit and, correct every single misspelling, and there are some that will not. And there's no right, there's no right or wrong way in terms of that. It's children get that experience. The important piece of writing is getting their thoughts.
I know we're totally off topic, but at some point, do they combine the two again and say, well, you're writing and you need to spell properly? Or is it always from here on out just spelling, writing?
No, it's not.
Like 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th grade, I mean, do they eventually come
Yeah,
back together? Or?
It does come back together. The purpose of continuing to emphasize spelling and handwriting and those things that are still important skills to be able to do, but not, your writing should not be marked down because you wrote sloppy. And when we were in school, that would often happen. You'd see the too sloppy notation on the side, -5. Well, we should not be taking 5 points off because it's sloppy. That's just, and that's a kind of a new wave of thinking, but it's about the content. It's about what you did. It's about how you did it. It's not about the sloppiness. It's not about the spelling. And in some cases, it's punctuation. And at the same time, when we're grading, there are often rubrics. There should always be a rubric aligned to how we grade something. And if spelling is something that's listed as a component of the rubric that we assess through, then spelling factors in. But if we're purely just evaluating the writing itself, the spelling is
But
outside.
so generally, while they're here in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, and they're working on a writing assignment, I should not be obsessed about her spelling or her,
Don't obsess about spelling.
because that's not what she's being graded on for this particular class or project.
Again, great conversation to have with the teacher because, you know, just like we're having a kind of
Yeah.
dialogue or debate about this, there are teachers who have different points of
So
view
some
on it as
teachers
well.
may actually grade on spelling
Um,
for writing.
Reading and within writing, my instruction to them would be you can't take points off of a child's writing, due to spelling, unless you shared out in advance that spelling was something that was a factor in the grading process. Because we're not writing for spelling, we're spelling for spelling. We're writing for the writing, for the concepts. that are
This
coming
is
out.
very helpful because no one has ever in my 3 or 4 years ever sat down and said, this is the way it's done.
Good. Glad it's helpful. And then the last piece of what we expect from parents, and this is a big piece from myself procedurally as the building administrator, is regular and punctual attendance. It's so important that your child is here in school. We will do our best to help the child make up the work that they missed. We will do our best to get the child caught up. But there's nothing like being in school when the lessons are taught, when the concepts are presented. There's nothing that's going to replace that completely. I understand, I get it. If you have a vacation planned and you have a work schedule, this is when you can get off. Please try, if at all possible, to schedule vacations outside of the school days. We have holidays throughout the year. If at all possible, please try and avoid taking vacation during the school year. I get it. I've done it myself. It fits where you can fit it and when you can go, but that's appreciated. Being on time is very important. There's always those couple of students, unfortunately, who arrive at 9:15. With regularity, school starts at 9. If you arrive at 9, it's part of the reason for the AB week. Quite frankly, because if a child's habitually running late, and it's always literacy that they're missing by the total of the minutes by the end of the year, it's astronomical how much time is being missed from actual instruction. So, when you think about it, switching off math and literacy, at least you're missing different classes on different weeks for different times. Not that it's a justification, and I do, as the attendance officer, once we get to a certain number of lates, we have to have a sit-down conversation. It's just important. Please make sure your child is here for the beginning of the day so that they don't miss anything. And the same thing at the end of the day. I've been here about 10 months now. I've had with a couple of different parents, had to have conversations about coming in and picking up your child at 2:45. Yeah, it's close to the end of the day. They made it through most of the day, but they didn't make it through the whole day. There is significant amount of school that is missed in that last half an hour of the school day. And if at all possible, I know, and again, being a parent of 3, there are times when you can only get appointments at certain times. There are times when emergencies happen and things happen. We're certainly not going to be critical of those types of situations. But, if you're coming in once a week at 2:45 to pick up your child just because it makes the afternoon easier, that can't happen, and not that I would suspect that anyone would do that, but I've lived through those experiences where it's, we had to get here by a certain time and waiting for dismissal didn't work out, so I just figured I'd come in early. And really, quite frankly, we're going to try to stress this year, if a parent arrives at 2:50 to pick up their child, we're going to ask them to wait until 3:15 or 3:18 when the child's dismissed. If they insist, then what can I do? I've got to send the child home. But it's important that, and obviously if there's an emergency, just let us know it's an emergency and we'll get your child for you right away. But it's important that the child be here for the entire school day. And those are things that, need to be communicated. We need to share those out because sometimes people don't realize. Sometimes folks think, oh, it's the end of the day, they're just packing up. Well, no, we're really not. It's important time. I'm getting close to the end. I'm getting close. I'm dragging on. All right, so parent conferences. We have formal conferences in November and March. Please don't wait until November to communicate. We've talked a lot about communication. November is too late. We're going to have back to school night. You're going to get the opportunity, but that's not a conference time. That's for you to hear the presentations from the teachers in the school about what's happening, learn structures. Communication should take place outside of those, whether it's just a introductory email or whatever it may be, but please have some form of communication with your child's teacher in advance of that first conference. You shouldn't be strangers. You absolutely should not be strangers. Remember, it's a partnership. Continue that communication going on throughout the year. And it's important to doubly emphasize that because of the fact that our conferences are only going to be slotted for 10 minutes. So when you have your formal conference in November, remember, we've got, upwards of 40 students between, in third grade our numbers are a little lower, but in fourth and fifth grade, we have 40 students that we have to get 40 sets of parents through the conferences, and we just don't have enough time in our calendar. We're already, shortening days on 3 days of school and having extended nights to be able to offer the conferences. So, a 10-minute window, there's only so much that can be discussed during that 10-minute window. So, please remember to continue that communication as we go throughout the day.
Are the March conferences on an as needed, as in the primary school? Like, everyone sees the teacher in November, but then March, it was just if you really needed or requested or wanted. Is that the same thing here?
Yeah, for the most part. That's if you've had that ongoing communication and there's no need for a conference, then it's not mandatory. Oh, and then also, please don't forget that you can request a conference at any time. Just because conferences are formally scheduled for November and March, if you want to meet with a teacher face-to-face and have a conference, or you want to have a phone conference, we can certainly coordinate that. We have, the ability to, with a little bit of a heads up, be able to, get that communication to take place. All right, so now the last couple slides. The expectations of students. We provide structure and character education through our procedures that take place here in the school, in responsive classroom. Things such as morning meetings, which we talked about earlier. We have school-wide meetings that emphasize compassion and best behavior practices. Why am I talking about these things? Because we do expect children to be good citizens. We expect them to be good to their neighbors. We expect them to be good to their classmates. And I would suspect that you all have those same expectations of your children. But at the same time, we know that they're kids. It doesn't always happen that way. And as much as we try to instill their manners and instill the good behavior into our children, they're going to make mistakes. So, and I'll get into that in the next slide a little bit, but, it's important to remember that we have a hand in this as well. You've done everything you can to raise good children and give them all the politeness and manners and everything that they have. We need to foster and facilitate that in school as well, and we need to make sure that, we're doing all of the functions that we're responsible for in the school. Something you'll hear a lot from me, and your children will hear a lot from me, is the high fives and handshakes only. There really shouldn't be any touching that happens in school. As simple as a pat on the back. I was a middle school vice principal for 2 years. I honestly, literally had a fight where I had to suspend children because one kid in a basketball game patted the other kid on the back too hard. The kid got upset, turned around, shoved the child, they got into a pushing match, they ended up and that's an extreme example, but especially at this age, the children are very excited, they're very rambunctious. It's hard to keep their hands off of each other. They're running, they're jumping, they're doing these things which we have to provide that structure, we have to take that away. So the concept of high fives and handshakes, no touching. You shouldn't be holding hands, you shouldn't be hugging, you don't know who's comfortable with what. It shouldn't be happening. Please reinforce that. We talk about it a lot in school. Trust me, I'm not throwing detentions out for a child who walks up and puts his arm around his buddy. But we will say no touching, high fives and handshakes only. And if it becomes a pattern, then we might have to, have more of a conversation or communicate with you about it. But it's important that we, be really structured. All right, so now we're going to talk about discipline a little bit. Not that I expect any of you to have any of these issues, but children do make mistakes. Perspective on discipline, first one, all children make mistakes. I know I did when I was a kid. I'm expecting that all of you did as well. We're not perfect. That being said, we have to make sure that we hold people accountable for their mistakes in order for them to learn from their mistakes. If you don't have any accountability for your behavior whatsoever, you're never going to learn from those behaviors. Discipline is always intended as a learning experience. It's not because we want to punish somebody, and I know you as parents know that. The hardest thing we have to do is hold firm when we, have to, I don't even like to use the word punish, but when we have to issue consequences to our children for misbehavior, it's very hard, especially when they start crying, and we want to just pick them up and hold them and say it's okay, but we have to make sure that it's a learning experience. It's how we learn best. I've learned more in my life through my mistakes than my successes. I'm sure that many of you are the same way. Classroom teachers have discretion to issue consequences for poor choices as they deem appropriate. If a child is talking in class and a teacher has tried several steps or whatever it may be, there may be the need for a recess detention with the teacher or something along those lines. It is expected that the parents communicate that with you. There's no situation in which a child should be retained or held back from an experience or something, and that shouldn't be communicated with you. That's and it happens. The kids get chatty, they make mistakes, and it's important that we communicate that with you. It's also important that we hold the children accountable so that we keep those structured classroom experiences available. It does happen where children, make mistakes that go above and beyond what the teacher can handle, and the children get sent to the principal's office. Just an example of some consequences that I may issue to a child would be, there are some children who all it takes is it being sent to the office and me having to talk to the child in my office and saying I'm disappointed, and they never, ever, ever cross that line again. They're perfect angels for the rest of their life, and that's great. So that in itself is a consequence. But then we have morning detentions, we have lunch detention, we have recess detention. Can rise as high as suspension based upon what happens and what children actually do. And I can't say we don't have a code that says you say this, you get this. It's appropriate to the situation and what has occurred, and just like anything else, we take past history. If it's the third time a child's done something, we have continuous consequences, because obviously the first time and the second time you didn't learn. So, and then we do follow up between myself and Ms. G and classroom teachers. We do follow up after the fact to make sure that the message was conveyed properly, that the student got it as a learning experience, that they understand that we're not out to get them, that they understand that they made a mistake, and we expect that they'll learn, and we expect that they'll move on from that. All right, so important that we talk about bullying for a minute, because it's a huge emphasis in schools. We've never had as much attention on bullying as we do now. We have state law now in place that specifically prescribes exactly how the school has to respond to every single accusation of bullying. HIB, it's commonly known as harassment, intimidation, bullying. So if you hear somebody say HIB, that just it kind of goes along with bullying. Any person can report suspected bullying at any time. That includes you, that includes a teacher, that includes a student, that includes myself if I witness something. It's very specific in stating that anyone can report it at any time. Once someone reports a case of bullying, then an investigation has to take place. Ms. G is our school anti-bullying specialist. I work directly with her during those investigations that take place. They do happen. In most cases, we're able to work things out fairly satisfactorily. But it's unfortunate. Unfortunately, in some cases, kids being kids, they do things and say things that they shouldn't say and they shouldn't do, and sometimes they're not as tolerant of others as they should be. And some of these situations do arise. We have a specific timeline that we have to follow, going through the whole thing, and then a final report has to be issued to the superintendent, and then it's communicated to the Board of Education in closed session, the outcome of the investigation. So, these are, I think first of all, we're required to communicate this out to parents, but second of all, it's essential that everyone understand there's a big difference between someone bullying your child and your child getting into a conflict with another child. And when somebody reports that their child is being bullied, we have to investigate, and there's a report, and our hands are kind of tied. The law is very, very specific, and we have to make sure that we are specifically investigating and following and doing our due diligence on every circumstance that arises. But conflict is, I called you a name, you called me a name. bullying is I'm either repeatedly calling you something that you have said to me not to do and you're not giving it back, or it's someone exerting some sort of authority or dominance or power or control over someone else. We have very specific definitions and prescriptions on what is what, and it's very often that a parent will call up and will say, so-and-so is bullying my child. And then upon further investigation, it turns out that it was a conflict because the two children were going back and forth and were having a disagreement among one another, in which case, obviously a very different type of situation. We mediate, we work with the children, we try and resolve that conflict that's taking place.
And I think just to add to that, it's important that parents know when the law first came out, it was when it was happening on school property, that it affected their school day. And it was very quickly changed that that's not the case. And a lot of things happen on the bus, and a lot of things happen at home, and a billion things happen on the internet. So if you're home and you are witnessing or hearing or seeing your child is upset and losing sleep and these things are going on at home, call me or email me right away and tell me, because it is carrying over throughout the school day. You see it at home, we see it during their learning time, and they're distracted by it and they can't focus and they're upset, and they come to see me because they know that when they go home they have to deal with it on the computer again. So know that just because it's happening at home, reach out and let us know if something is happening.
Quick two-fold question. What is the school's involvement? I mean, I know like the laws are changing and things are changing, and some schools are starting to say like what happens off school grounds, like on Facebook or whatever. School actually potentially could get involved. It relates to something that happened in school, and what goes on as far as that. My daughter is not on the internet, but at some point she will be.
The way the legislation specifically comes down is anything that could potentially affect the learning environment for a child is within the domain of the school. Okay. So if a child, obviously says online, I'm going to meet you up at school tomorrow, they use the word school, but even if the child says, I'm going to beat you up. Well, now the two children are in the same school, the child's looking over his shoulder and concerned that somebody might, and this doesn't happen in third grade, but that child's now distracted in the learning environment. That has an effect on the school. So we do have the authority to issue consequences within the school for something that happens outside the school.
Okay, and then phones, like what's the policy on phones? Again, she does not have one. I don't plan on getting her one, but...
Yeah, no, very, very good question. Students are permitted to bring phones to school with them. They are permitted to bring iPods, they are permitted to bring iPads. They can bring them. Primarily the purpose would be for use on the school bus. Students are never permitted to take pictures with those devices at any point in time. We share that out, we communicate that with students. During the school day, once they come into school, they're expected to be turned off and left in their backpack, and they don't take them out and use them during the school day. Obviously, education is moving in a technological direction. There may come a time where we encourage children to come in and bring technology and use them in the classroom for research or whatever it may be. We're not at that point yet. So while we don't tell children they can't bring them to school, they shouldn't have them out or be using them at any time during the school day.
Typically though, that if they brought a phone or something, it should be off in their bag.
It should be off in their backpack so it's not ringing or making noise and disrupting the learning environment. Okay. All right, and then just noting that many steps are taken to educate and inform students on how they should be treated, the school-wide meetings that Ms. G facilitates, the classroom meetings, the discussions that we have, the ongoing emphasis. Be honest with you, when I was going to school, was the big push was the war on drugs, and you had the egg in the frying pan and the whole this is your brain on drugs thing, and this is another example that I use. That was drilled into us when we were little, and I can honestly say I never in my life even thought about doing a drug because of those early experiences that I had, where I was like, I don't want to fry my brain. What are you crazy? That was effective. I wish they'd do more of that today. But bullying is like the war on drugs was back then. It's talked about in school, I don't want to say incessantly, but it's talked about in school a lot. It's emphasized. We do training of parents. We do training of children. We do training of staff. We identify how people can recognize it. We tell children what it feels like when they're being bullied, so they know and they recognize it. We tell children how bad it feels to bully others and how it makes you feel bad. There's so much talk about it that it really has kind of brought it to the surface. Honestly, we get more reports of bullying today in schools than we ever have before. But I can tell you, working in a school, that it's a better environment for children than it's ever been because kids are so quick to call somebody out for bullying. Bullying is, you're bad if you are a bully. That's how kids get it in their mind. You are bad if you are a bully. Get away from me. Stay away from me. I don't like you. You're a bad person. So that being said, there's a lot of attention called to it. It's blown up right away. You know, we put a stop to it. So that ongoing bullying that used to happen when we were in school and we'd see it, or it might have happened to us, or maybe we did it to others, that stuff doesn't happen anymore. So that's a positive from this whole legislation. We spend a lot of time talking about it, but the fact that it's a safer environment is really better.
And I
promise I'm down to the last
think
one.
with the law, it forced us to really be as proactive as possible as well. It really forces schools to teach them. Last year, we worked really hard on teaching kids how to stand up for yourself, what to say, what to do. I mean, we've all been there. We've been in situations where, I was picked on and I surely made mistakes as well, but being so proactive about it, because this law kind of made everything surface, it's a good thing, because now we're giving them the skills on this is what you can say, this is what you can do, this is who you can turn to. So.
Absolutely. All right, then I just wanted to round it up, this last slide, just talking about what, sharing with you what, our kind of vision is for the long term in terms of school goals. We want to make sure that we improve the school-home communication so that we get total transparency. We spent a lot of time today talking about the importance of parents being in the know and parents being involved. It's important that we have that transparency within the school, and I think it's there to an extent, but it can get better. It can certainly get better, and that's our goal, is to push to that point where parents know exactly what's happening. They are able to be supportive of it at home because they know exactly how and why things are happening. To establish a collective sense of pride and academic achievement in every child. Obviously, that is something that has always been emphasized. We want to continue to just have children really have that goal that I want to be the best student I can be. I want to know as much as I can. I want to really be successful in my learning experience. School pride is a very, very important thing to me. When you think about middle schools and high schools and they wear their colors, in high school you get your varsity jacket and you're so proud of it, and you play for your school and then you have pride in that. I want to see, I'm looking forward to us fostering more of that in the elementary school, and having the school colors days and the Colts days and the things that really build pride in your school, so that the children can be proud of the experience that they had. When they move on to the middle school, they can look back and say, oh, I'm proud to have gone through that school. And by emphasizing that school pride, I think that's really a key. And really going back to step 2, which is emphasizing that that academic achievement. You want your school to be the best school that it can possibly be if you have school pride and if you're proud of the school that you belong to. And then, obviously we talked about test scores. We talked about why they're important. We talked about whether, you believe in them or not, why they're necessary. We want to continually strive to improve those test scores through the emphasis of the standards and academic rigor. I don't know if you've ever heard the phrase, teach to the test. We don't teach to the test, but it can be argued that everyone teaches to the test, because the test is based on the standards, and we have to teach the standards. So if we're teaching the standards, we're teaching to the test, because that's what's on the test, is the review of the standards. So it really depends on how you look at it. We don't say, we're teaching you this because you have to do well on the NJS. We're teaching you this because this is what you need to learn at this grade level so you can be successful through your education. And that's what the NJS assesses, is what you know at the grade level appropriate stage. So that's kind of where we are. And I'm pretty sure this is the Q&A. There we go. All right. So I thank you so much for staying through. I went longer than I expected to go, but we had the questions kind of built in, and there were a lot more questions this time in the last session, so that's why I think we went a little bit longer. But I appreciate that dialogue. Yes?
Who are all third grade teachers?
Okay, our third grade teachers, we have 3 teams in third grade. Last year, one of our teams was Miss Cooker and Mrs. Cook and Miss Becker. That's kind of like the. What did I did one of those mergers,
Yes.
like Bennifer. So Mrs. Cook and Miss Becker were a third grade team last year. Both of them have moved on to new roles. Mrs. Cook is our literacy coach now, K through 5, which is a new position that we created this year. She'll be working specifically with professional development with teachers, emphasizing the Readers and Writers Workshop model. Mrs. Cook was an exceptional teacher in the classroom, and now she gets to branch out and really share her knowledge and experiences with our teachers. And Ms. Becker is our math enrichment teacher. So we have 2 openings. We have 1 consistent team, Mrs. Gorman and Mrs. Griesbach. They were a team last year, and then we have 2 teachers coming in from the primary school up to third grade. We have Megan Theodore and Michelle Gunnell coming up. Rather than creating a team of 2 new teachers to the building, we took our other team and split them so that we would have a consistent grade level person. And so Michelle Rogers and Megan Theodore are a team, and then Michelle Gunnell and Krista Mistretta are a team. So you'll be on one of those 3 teams. Unless you have, even twins are on the same team. Yes.
I had a related arts question. Since there's a 1 to 5 schedule now, instead of a Monday to Friday like last year, if you're volunteering for related arts, like computer or a library, do they still do that in the school? Has that changed?
I've had a lot of conversations with the PTO on both of those subjects, and I'm honestly at this point not sure exactly where we stand. I know that we will still have volunteers for the library.
Because I
But
did
the
library,
structure,
but it'll switch the days then, so I
yes,
just have it.
and
I do not to schedule anything on a Tuesday.
yeah, and the structure of volunteers in the library is likely to be kind of different than it's been in the past. We have a half-time librarian here in the school, so we certainly appreciate and value parent volunteering, but a parent coming in and volunteering at only the time when their child is here isn't so much of a benefit to us as a structure of an environment. So we're hoping to get volunteers who are willing to come in and volunteer in terms of helping the organization and the structure of the library. And in computers, I believe that last I had discussed with the PTO, we were not going to be continuing with computer room parent volunteers going forward. But I would double check with the PTO on that, because it's been a couple weeks since we've had a conversation. I'm not sure exactly. Yes.
Appreciate your time today and doing this for us. The pride thing's a big deal for me, both from a township and a school environment and all of that. I lost track of the uniform discussion. This may be a Board of Ed meeting or question, but is that still being kicked around, or do you know where that's at? Or I would love your opinion if you're comfortable sharing that at this point.
I'll be honest with you. I don't think my opinion, quite frankly, matters, because I have not been involved in any of these discussions whatsoever. I know that there was a survey that went out.
Right. I don't think, unless I missed it, I don't think
no one has
calculated
spoken
it yet.
a word to me about the results of the survey,
Well, maybe
about
that
whether we're
is-
moving forward or not.
Maybe that answers the question. Maybe the survey was overwhelming in a different direction.
At this point, I have not heard that we're going forward with.
Obviously not September,
Yeah,
but
yeah. I mean, I honestly don't know, because I don't have anything to report to you, because nobody's really talked to me about that.
maybe in the future. I think it's a great idea.
Last year, once or twice, you had held a
Parent chats?
specifically regarding internet use. Do you have intentions of continuing that? Because the feedback that I had gotten from parents that had children here was phenomenal.
Okay,
And
that's
I
great.
didn't have children here at the time, so I kind of felt like this didn't necessarily apply yet. But I was hoping that you are. Or
Yeah, I suppose, Ms. G and I really kind of put that together. Shortly after I arrived, there were some issues with student use of technology,
Yeah.
both in school and at home, and some cyberbullying things that had happened. And so we thought it was, beneficial to parents to kind of share some of the technologies that they may not have understood. And we did share that out, and that's certainly something we could put on the back on the table as a parent
Yeah,
chat.
that got a
or-
lot of good, a lot of
Yeah,
people
a
were
lot of
talking about
feedback.
that.
Good,
Feedback is
good.
very
Really
good.
All right, yeah, so
Do
maybe
it
we'll,
again,
maybe
being
we'll
a
do
parent
it,
that's in attendance
do it
last
again,
year.
because that was the best attended
Right.
parent chat that I had. I had like
Christy,
40,
that would
40
come back
parents
to your
come out for
point,
that
yeah,
one.
what you
And I don't
brought
think I
up
even got
before.
10 for any other one, so, you know, it was obviously a hot topic.
Yeah, especially for some of us, this is our first child
Yeah.
coming up. So it's
Right.
all new.
So, yeah, here's your iPod Touch, and I don't know what
I
you're
have
doing.
no idea what how you can hurt yourself with this, but.
Right.
How do they know, and this is right from the mouth of an incoming third grader, how will I find my way to my classroom the first day of school?
Oh, we will
She
have
gave me a list of questions to get
Okay.
answered.
riding the bus or dropped off.
She'll be riding the bus.
Riding the bus, okay, so we will have staff out there on the bus ramp directing the children. If you're a third grader, go this way. Right out there, the students will all be kind of herded, for lack of a better term, directly into their entrance. And then, you know, the staff.
Right there.
Yeah.
I stand down there and I kind of.
We will
I
herd.
advised her, she was concerned about how will she know how to get to.
There will be
the
no
side.
chance that they can get lost. They will be guided directly into where they're going. Yes.
When do you anticipate we're gonna find out their team?
Anticipation is, I believe it was August 23rd is the tentative date
That
as
the
to
letters will
when.
go out?
Yeah. We're not even going to be doing letters this year. It's going to be through the parent portal. The portal is down right now. Parents will be able to go log into the portal and they'll be able to see the class
Oh, that's
assignment
great.
right there through the portal. And that's part of the reason why we do it, is to make sure that everybody has their information and can check report cards and
Yeah,
and
that's a good
all
way
that
to get people
Who's
information.
my new contact over there? I need my password. Is it still Terry?
Yeah, it's Terry, yes.
It's the same thing, we pull their grades, their report cards down.
Correct, yes. So we will probably send out an e-alert, because, you know, at this point, it looks like we should be ready to go with August 23rd. If there's some reason for a delay, you know, that's why I'm kind of tentative to say this on the recording, because now I'm out there upset.
Send an alert.
There will be an e-alert that goes
So
out.
we can start
yeah.
emailing you if we don't get it.
Yeah, there will be an e-alert that will go out that will say, you know, please know that on August 23rd you'll be able to access the Genesis portal.
Great, thank you so
Thank you
much.
very much.
Thank you.